Anybody who's been dealing with media analysis for any amount of time knows what it means to look at something through a lens of black culture, a Marxist lens, a feminist lens. You know what it means to look at those things through those lenses. But if you're not very media literate, you don't know what that means. But before we talk about the Matt Walsh stuff, actually, I kind of want to have a back and forth with you about the anti-union stuff, because that's a point that I think I get from my time at Walmart and Quick Trip and a few other areas. So there was a bit of propaganda that was sent out years ago. I don't know if anybody remembers the Hilton Hotel unionizing shit, where there were multiple Hilton hotels that had a union contract, and they had a minimum wage of about $12 an hour for their staff. And then there were a set of Hilton hotels that were non-unionized further north of those ones that had $15 and $16 for their hiring wages versus the union ones. And Steven Crowder and a bunch of people talked about this years ago, saying that this was evidence that unions were worthless, that, look, you actually get lower wages when you go to those unions, and the wages are even lower than they look because those people are also paying union dues and all that fun stuff. So that's one set of things that I remember distinctly from years ago that can play into people being anti-union, because on paper, unions are great. On paper, unions are fantastic. But there are also corporate unions. There are also police unions.
True.
There are versions of unions that are objectively fucking horrible. So I understand anti-union sentiment, because I also used to be anti-union. Back when I was working at Walmart, I bought the anti-union propaganda we were given hook, line, and sinker, because it was like my second or third job I had ever had, so I was still working with, like, the information that gets put in front of me is the information I'm consuming, for better or worse. I didn't necessarily know any further context outside of, well, the CBL said union is bad, so it's bad. And that guy over there that talks about change my mind, he also said unions are bad, and I don't know how to do media analysis yet, so I guess unions are bad, and that smart guy over there who's smarter than me knows better.
I mean, like, I understand the propaganda. It's just like, I wish people thought about it more, you know? I can understand.
Guys, I can understand that.
Yeah.
I wish they would think about it more too, but I think from the perspective, and this is the thing that we need to get really good about on the left, is there's a lot of assumptions we make from the left that
True.
is... Oh, that's another one. Yeah, no, Zero Life King just brought it up. Kroger's corporate union is also a scam union. I forgot about that because I worked for Kroger as well, and their union basically fucked me. Because when I tried to complain... my store had a bad nepotism problem. My store had a worker at my pay level whose mother was the manager above her manager, so the person who effectively controlled our shift was the employee making the same money as I did at the same pay grade as I was. My manager, Sam, did not call the shots. That bitch called the shots. And
yeah,
that was the only job that I have ever physically walked out of mid-shift has been that job, and it was because of that was one of several problems. I complained to HR and tried to work through the union to get things handled, and all they ended up doing was telling the grocery manager that I had complained, and then I got cornered at the end of one of my shifts by the grocery manager with her effectively saying, if you ever complain about me again, it will be your job. And I'm just like, oh, okay, cool. So that open door policy was bullshit. That's good to know. I shouldn't have opened my mouth at all. Like, those were my early experience. Like, that was my first union experience, was Kroger. Yeah. And then all of my experience beforehand was, you know, right-wing propaganda and Walmart's CBLs and shit like that. And the first union that almost everybody deals with. The very first union everybody ever has dealt with in their life. The teachers' union. When you're a kid and you have that super shitty teacher who's an asshole and you hear the words tenure for the first time, that's like the first bit of poison that I ever got, I think. I didn't connect the dots that was a union issue, but I can see how somebody who listens to a lot of Shapiro, Walsh, and etc. would.
I don't know that public school teachers have tenure, though. Right? Like, if
I was always told
like,
that they did.
I think if you're like a tenure's like only, as far as I know, like only a college professor thing.
Right, but
like,
that's not the information that was given to 12 and 13-year-old me.
Oh, yeah. No, that makes sense.
Like, this is a young, very, very young me that doesn't have access to information in the ways that we have access to information now.
Yeah.
So all I hear is, oh, well, this teacher who's being really shitty to me has tenure. They have tenure because of union. I didn't necessarily connect those dots when I was a kid.
Yeah, of course not.
Yeah, that those things might go hand in hand. But I can kind of understand the anti-union sentiment because we're fed poison about unions for years. Like, an uncomfortable amount of time we are fed poison about unions. And until you actually get into a union, you're gonna continue to accept that poison because you don't have anything that's changing that experience. Like, hell, even when you get into a union, you might end up being anti-union. You know how many people who work for, like, the Electricians Guild at the local end up voting for right-wing politicians and anti-union principles, despite being in a union? Like, the weirdest, most anti-union people end up being the people who need the unions the most.
The Teamsters, like, I think are majority, like, conservative. But yeah, it's one of those things where, like, I remember, like, I think I was in high school, and, like, when I first encountered the idea of what, like, feminism is, and beyond, like, oh, it's what mean old ladies say they are. Like, my idea of what a feminist was like a holdover of like anti-feminist stereotypes from, like, I don't know, the suffragette era. Do you remember the movie Mary Poppins?
I do.
Do you remember at the very beginning of the movie, like, one of the, like, problems I think that the movie kind of frames is that the mom in the family is, like, negligent in her duties as, like, a wife because she's going off to suffragette meetings?
So, I watched Mary Poppins when I was about 5. So I don't remember that at all, because at the age that I was watching that, I hadn't seen anything framed that way. I didn't know what those meant.
Yeah, it was but, like, I had like the schema from, like, a million different things, and it was just kind of like, and, like, the mom in that movie isn't mean, but, like, I just had this schema that, like, oh, being a feminist is kind of wrong and outdated. This movie is set in, like, the 1800s or whatever. Like, it's the 1990s or it's the early 2000s. We don't need that anymore. People have learned to be better towards women. And then I found out what actual feminism is and a little bit more about the world. And I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah, I think my first experience with so technically there are 3 distinct moments with my first experiences with feminism. My first experience with feminism ever as a kid probably was watching Animaniacs and Dot, because that Animaniacs was very political and I didn't know that when I was a kid. So I couldn't connect those dots, like, oh, well, Dot's a feminist, and this makes sense, because all I thought was, well, the funny cartoon characters are making funny jokes about Bill Clinton, and that's funny. Like, that's as far as I got. But then my first actual experience with a feminist after that was dating somebody who was a feminist who was fairly toxic about their views. At least I thought they were fairly toxic about them at the time. But I also grew up in a Christian private school and then later a magnet school, so I was just in this world of privilege where everybody knows more shit, despite the fact that, you know, we were being told the Earth was 6,000 years old. So that painted feminism in a negative light, and that, you know, cartoon character did not tell me anything about that. And then after that, my experience with feminism came mostly from your right-wing commenters, your Steven Crowder, your, at the time, Hunter Avalon. Who else was I watching around that time? I wasn't watching Shapiro. I wasn't watching Walsh. I watched a couple episodes from Steven Crowder, just the Change My Mind stuff, and I saw some stuff from, like, Sargon and Thunderfoot back during the Anita Sarkeesian days. Yep. And so, like, my schema for what feminism was always negative. Yeah. And then I started making content, and I wanted to do, like, apolitical atheism content, so I didn't talk about it. And while I wasn't talking about it, I was learning more about it, and my mind was being changed until I finally was okay talking about this shit. And then, like, now there's this funny, weird thing where there's people who can go, well, Suris was... He hasn't ever seemed that bad. I'm just like, no, I just was quiet. Yeah, I was bad, but I was quiet.
Yeah, I think I had kind of what I would describe as kind of like low key, like misogynist beliefs, and then I kind of grew up a little bit more, and like I was working at Game Informer for a little while, okay. And
I didn't know you worked for Game Informer.
Yeah, I interned there, actually. Okay. So I worked there for like a summer after I graduated college. And like in college, I had learned about, I have an English degree, and I learned about like analyzing text through like a feminist lens. And I was like, oh, that's what feminism is. Okay, that makes more sense. It's an ideology for women and men. It just because it has the word, like a root word like feminine in it, doesn't mean it's just for women.
Yeah, just because it says girly doesn't mean that everybody who's under its umbrella needs to be a woman, because there's concepts within feminism that deal with, say, toxic masculinity, which is a thing that also the right wing never actually managed to poison me on. That was one of those things that I didn't hear enough of from the channels that I was listening to, that I didn't develop an opinion. Because, like, during those early times, I wasn't developing my own opinions. I was quite literally just parroting whatever convenient shit I heard that sounded like it was plausible. And that's not a good way to function.
No, it's not. But like, I think for me, like an entry level to feminism was like, hey, it's kind of bullshit that like we have, you know, blue for boys and pink for girls. What is that based on? And then I like looked, I like researched it and was like,
it's capitalism.
It's literally just, it's easier to market things to a smaller demographic of people if you like break them up. And the entire association between these colors is also just bullshit, because one year they ran out of paints and a store started using blue for boys and pink for girls, and it just kind of caught on. Yep. And like, there's nothing intrinsic about these ideas. We impose this kind of bullshit standard, and there's not really a good reason for it other than maintaining a certain type of power structure. And so I learned like these basics, and then I like the Gamergate stuff hit, kind of like as I was in gaming journalism, and I was just like, oh, this is awful. This is okay. Yeah, maybe we do still need this feminism thing. You know, like maybe this is way more relevant than I ever thought it was.
That's another thing that it didn't occur to me with the media that I was consuming at that time, because you mentioned the concept that, oh, this isn't like this monolithic thought process. This is a lens through which you can view the world. And that's something that I didn't get really early on because, like, for instance, anybody who's been dealing with media analysis for any amount of time knows what it means to look at something through a lens of black culture, a Marxist lens, a feminist lens. You know what it means to look at those things through those lenses.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're not very media literate, you don't know what that means. So if you hear... the one that I remember early on was Anita Sarkeesian when she was doing her Women in Games series, and she was talking about, I think it was Double Dragon, where the beginning of the game is one of the character's girlfriends getting beat and then taken away by a gang, and you need to go save her. And the fight between her and Sargon of Akkad effectively was her going, this shows the tropes of women being trophies and women being objects to be fought after. And Sargon was like, no, this is showcasing chivalry and classic ideas of manlyhood. And it didn't occur to me that they're both fucking right. Both of them are correct because they're viewing this through a different lens. Each of them is looking at this through a different lens of media analysis. That concept didn't occur to me. I was just a dumb person going, the one who sounds smarter is right. The one who sounds smarter is the correct one. It didn't occur to me that there isn't actually a fucking fight here. It can be both of those things.
Yeah, and it's just that, like, it is, like, kind of this idea that, like, those old standards and tropes that hold up kind of like the old patriarchal system, they're good. Like, it's just, Sargon and people like him just believe that's good. Those power structures should be that way. This is right. And it's just kind of, in their view, it's like, this is showing how the world is. So, like, there's nothing wrong with showing what is.
Yeah, that's another thing that's interesting when you're not looking at things through those lenses, when you're not looking at things through, like, different lens of media analysis. There was a argument that I got into with a friend of mine years ago, and it ended up being a public debate on another friend's channel about The Killing Joke. And if you've read the comic for The Killing Joke, there is a moment where Barbara Gordon gets sexually assaulted by the Joker. And a friend of mine had a big problem with that and how that was portrayed. And at the time, my only thought that I could give to it was, so let me get this straight. Your problem is that the villain and the bad guy did the bad guy thing. Mm-hmm. The villain did a bad thing, and that's something that you're mad about. That sounds really silly. And years later, I would do more research into things like the woman in the fridge incident in comics. Mm-hmm. For anybody who's familiar with that bit of, I think it was a Green Lantern when that happened. Kyle Rayner's Green Lantern, finding out that his girlfriend was stuck in a fridge. And it just, the way that women were handled in a lot of media was, well, they are disposable or they are side characters or all this stuff. I wasn't understanding that the problem that she's having is not that the bad guy did the bad guy thing. The problem that she was having was, well, I don't like how comics generally were handling characters like Barbara Gordon. This is a way to sideline them. Punish the male characters by hurting the female characters is a very common thing, because that's what Joker was doing, is he was trying to break Batman and he was trying to break Gordon. And to break Commissioner Gordon, he went for his daughter. And that's didn't occur to me then, because I wasn't used to that concept of, let's view this through a different lens. It doesn't mean something ultimately is one thing or the other. It's just a different way to look at it. In some cases, like, it's not even an issue with that. Like in isolation, it's not bad to have a bad character do a bad thing. But if you're looking at, like, oh, this happens all the time, like, this is a really overused trope that has a negative,
like message about like ownership over women, or you know, putting women on the sidelines or in a fridge. Like it's the amount to which we do that in our narratives and our storytellings, and like that can kind of seep into real life in a myriad of subtle ways that aren't great.
Yeah, that's the other thing that didn't occur to me, is that it's not that, you know, like you said, it's not that the Joker did a bad thing. That's not what the problem is. The problem is that was something that happened all the time in media. How do you get to the male protagonist? Well, you go through the female. You attack the female because they're the weaker one. And if we assault them, we can make it shocking for shocking's sake. And like that stuff just did not occur to me. And that's kind of a problem. It's a problem not just of being, you know, I guess illiterate's probably the best way to think about that. Like, it's not just a problem of being media illiterate, it's also the problem of how we communicate those ideas to people, because it can sound, as somebody who was, you know, right-wing conservative, it can sound very condescending when you give that analysis and you don't do it in a way that's careful and treats it as if this is just one perspective of looking at this, as opposed to saying, this is the way this is. Because a lot of times it comes off as saying, this is the way this is, and it's bad, and it's wrong, and you're just like, but that's my favorite thing. Or in the case of the Killing Joke, going, okay, but that's one of the most prolific, well-known things that happened in comic book history. How dare you insult it? Like, we as people do a lot of, like, taking media in as part of our personalities.
Yeah, like, it is one of those things where, like, there's also kind of like how people can tell edgy jokes, but you have to be good at telling the edgy joke. You know, like, it has to be a good joke.
Yeah.
And I remember I reviewed the Wasteland 2. Have you ever played that?
I have not, actually, no.
It's a really good game, but there is a part in it where, like, you visit this town, and the town is just like implied that, like, well, not implied. They are enslaving people, like, it's a post-apocalyptic, and they're doing, like, slaves, and there's, like, just kind of offhandedly mentioned as, like, scene dressing that, like, oh yeah, they're also making sex slaves. You know, they're keeping people in sexual slavery, and, like, then they never do anything with that. It's just kind
a
of
thing
like
that happens.
Yeah, it's just like this window dressing, but it's kind of like, well, if you're gonna do this, then it colors, like, how I thought of the entire rest of this segment of the game, where it's just kind of like, you have the option to just, like, make an alliance with these people, and it's like, yeah, and the idea of, like, it just never comes up again. You know, like, it seemed kind of just grotesquely added in there.
It's a thing that's shocking for shocking's sake.
Yeah, without really being willing to engage with that. Because I don't have a problem if you want to put that in your game, but I have a problem with it if you're just putting it in your game and you're not actually doing anything with it.
I guess the opposite of that, there's two opposites to it that I do like. One from a series that, actually, both of them from series that started out not having a very mature concept of how to handle the genders, and then grew up about it, one more so than the other. One of them, you've played Ocarina of Time before, I'm sure, right?
Oh yeah,
okay.
So many times.
So the Gerudo. It is never outright stated that the Gerudo capture Hylian men and rape them. Never once is that stated, but it is 100% what happens. Because we witness the Hylian men being captured, we know that the Hylian women cannot birth men but one every 100 years. So, like, we know for a fact that this is a thing that happens in their society and is normal, but the game does not try to tell you that. It lets you figure that shit out. I like that. That's the way that you have that as, like, window dressing without it being very, very insulting to the reader or without it being handled poorly, is you let that be something that is thoroughly implied. Now, it's harder to do that in, say, written medium, because when you're doing written medium, environmental storytelling isn't a thing that you have as well, because then you run into problems of, like, Chekhov's gun. Because then if the character has mentioned that they saw it as they were walking down the room, now you have to pay that off, which in a video game or in a movie you don't really have to do. You can just have that information available to the viewer, and then it's there. That's not saying video games are better storytellers than books. Absolutely fucking not. Because my other example is actually from a book series. Have you read the Dresden Files?
I haven't read it. I watched the TV show. I have a weird fondness for the show.
I am sorry.
I know it is not a good representation of the books. I just haven't had time to get to it.
Okay, so spoiler alert for the Dresden Files for early books that were released almost 20 years ago. But spoiler alert for some of the earlier books. So it is outright stated in the earlier Dresden books that the vampire courts use sex. And they use sex a lot to get to their victims. The White Court is mostly made up of succubi that actually, like, feed off of people's emotions, so they do it in a more direct way. The Red Court do it more as a way to lure in victims because they actually, like, eat and consume them. But they need a way to get people in there. So, like, they'll do things like they owned a place called the Velvet Room, or at least one vampire owned a place called the Velvet Room that was just a brothel. Like, there's no two ways about it. It was just a brothel. So, in the Dresden Files, they mention that all the time, but the person that they actually have get assaulted by the Red Court vampires after establishing that they use sex as a way to lure victims in or even torture them, which we didn't know that they did this to torture them at the time in the book series, but the main character, Harry, it is not described directly, but it is heavily implied that he is gang raped by the vampires.
Yeah. And
when I say it's not described directly, it's like the way that it's written is like he is in a dark room surrounded by them. He's feeling the caress of their tongues on his body, and he's like every couple books, like he mentions it and says like it's an experience that stays with you, and I still have nightmares about it, and it's very much describing sexual assault. Is a thing that happens to the character. But the weird thing about that is that happens early enough in the series where not only is Harry still very much not a feminist, he's very like old school chivalrous, I'm gonna save the girl because girls need saving type of guy, which is a thing that gets, basically beat out of him throughout the series. But Jim Butcher, the author, was still very much writing all of his books in the Dresden series that way, where, women are very much person in the fridge. Like, he does a woman in the fridge thing in the very first book, and I've talked to a lot of women who, like, they will not read the rest of that series because of incidents like that happening in the first couple novels. Despite, weirdly enough, after Jim Butcher gets married, it turns out he suddenly starts writing women a lot better. It's almost like his wife is sitting behind his shoulder going, maybe don't do that, hon. So, but I guess those are two examples that always are kind of fresh in my mind of, like, if you want to play with this trope of, like, here's this group does sex slavery in some way, shape, or form, and you don't want it to just be like a poorly written background thing, then those are the ways you do it. You let it be something that is implied that you could pick up on, or you have your main character, especially if it's a male main character, assaulted in an unforgettable way so that it becomes a thing that they live with and they have to deal with for the rest of their life. Like, you can't let it be a thing that disappears from their life because it doesn't disappear from the life of sexual assault victims.
Yeah, like that. I think that it if you're going to have it, deal with it. You know?
Yeah, like make sure there's payoff. It's not just I think one of the worst ways you can do it, and I think while I cannot think of any media where I've seen this happen directly off the top of my head, I'm sure when I describe this, you and almost anybody else will be able to name media where this has happened. The main character is a guy. He has a girlfriend. At some point in the story, his girlfriend gets sexually assaulted. The guy takes revenge for his girlfriend being sexually assaulted, and then it is never brought up again. And it is just a thing that happened. While I can't name off the top of my head a piece of media where that has happened that I remember, I can practically guarantee that in the comment section of this, or hell, in the chat right now, there's probably people who are thinking of stories where they've dealt with that already.
I mean, it's also like basically every like knockoff low rate action film falls into that category. Like every like schlock, you know, C-tier action movie with like I don't know,
name a really bad action hero real quick.
What's his name? The Russian guy, Steven Seagal. Like, I don't know. Like, there's like an entire genre of, you know, guy's woman gets hurt or threatened or violated, and the guy goes on killing spree.
Yeah, you know how they
Taken. Yeah, basically.
You know how you can do that plot way better now, though? We have a great way to do that plot better. Instead of a woman, make it a dog, and then call the movie John Wick.
There you go. Yep.
That's how you solve that problem.
I mean, yeah, genuinely.
I said, granted, so in my chat, they're mentioning Duke Nukem. I wouldn't count Duke Nukem, though, because Duke Nukem is very firmly parody. Like, it 100% knows that it's taking the piss, which is why you can literally take piss in that game. But Akira is mentioned as another one where that happens in that film. Let's see here. Animakin says Bruce Wayne was sexually assaulted. It's how we get Damian Wayne, and it's never been dealt with. Has there actually been a comic where him and Talia have a conversation about that? Like in anything,
can't remember one.
In anything other than like passing tense? I actually hadn't thought about that one. Because like Damian's a really beloved character throughout all of the Batman series. It's basically just how do you do Jason Todd in a way that makes us not want to kill him? But no, I hadn't considered that at all, and I like me some Batman. Let's see here. Axo says, I've thought about stories like that, but in those situations, most of the time it's me trying to get a fictional character. I like to fix my trauma and make me feel protected in some way, but that's also my point of view as an AFAB person. Axo says, leave Jason alone. No, everybody was correct when they voted to kill Jason. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. No, it's okay. It's okay to not like early Jason Todd. It's okay to like Red Hood after the fact. You can take a bad character and make them into a good character. It's perfectly fine. Jet Fatigue says there's also not a significant... there's also a not insignificant overlap with Bury Your Gays. Actually, maybe this is the cis white guy speaking in me, but I have heard that concept, but I've never done any reading about that concept. Do you know much about that?
Oh, it's kind of like one of those concepts where like gay people are treated as disposable in a lot of action films or media, where like, you know, they get offed because they are considered less vital to the story.
Less vital to the story because gay.
Yeah, I mean, like, that's probably oversimplifying it, but yeah, kind of.
You're not important because gay.
Yep.
Okay, fair enough. Fair enough.
I by the way, on that note, I would very much recommend a Chuck Tingle book. called Bury Your Gays, which is it's a horror book but like fun and for the gays, and it's genuinely really great.
Okay, Linari says queer film history. We'll talk about it a lot. So, and it may again just be the cis white guy in me, but I haven't actually done any diving into queer film history's catalog, and it may just be that stuff that I don't care about on surface for myself because it doesn't really apply to me. And I know that it's literally coming from a position of privilege. Like, I'm privileged to be a cis hetero guy who likes women. So it's the same trap that caused me to fall into a lot of those conservative tropes when I was younger. Shit didn't apply to me, so I didn't look into it further. Jematique says, they're killed as a punishment for being queer. Is this like old horror tropes where we kill the teens for having sex because having sex as a teen is immoral?
It's kind of like an extension of that. Yeah.
Having sex while gay, bad. Die.
Yep.
Lenari says, I know Lindsay Ellis did a good one about trans rep in film. I'll have to watch that, because again, have not seen. But I will need to look some stuff up. And I'm also willing to be sent stuff, because, like, I live in the Atlanta area. Everything is 15 to 20 minutes away from me, no matter where I am at any fucking moment. So the amount of times where YouTube video essay in the car is how I keep my sanity is kind of insane. So feel free to send me shit. If I have not, if I have not thought about it before. MX Mothman says Chuck Tingle is a gift to humanity.
Chuck Tingle is like I know people. I literally have one of the last books in my apartment as I'm about to move. My partner got me a wonderful book. I actually have it right here, and I believe it's safe to show on stream. The Space Raptor Butt Trilogy.
It's a Chuck Tingle book. I'm not even going to say the what. I understand the what already.
Yeah, from Hugo-nominated author Chuck Tingle.
I have watched these mages cast death on characters in my party far too often now. I want to scream. Jesus Christ. Also, is this the same partner who has launched a lingerie line?
Yeah.
Do you want to
talk? Yeah,
I'm happy to. Shill that shit.
Always happy to shill.
Shill that shit.
Yeah, my partner launched a lingerie line called Imogene Olivia, and it's essentially lingerie for trans femmes, or just anyone who wants to feel feminine, but we call it gender euphoric lingerie. And it's made with like trans femmes in mind, so like the bottoms and like the sets are designed around like slightly different proportions, like the idea that it should be able to fit you and be comfortable regardless of kind of what your anatomy is downstairs. And like it's really great. And I am a little biased, but also it's super comfortable. I'm actually wearing the bralette right now. You can actually see.
Hey, look, advertisement.
Yeah. And it doesn't have an underwire, so it's very, very comfortable, and it fits a wide variety of sizes. We've tested it and seen it out in the wild on people with no chests who are cis men. We've seen it on, trans women, and we've seen it on cis women, and like it fits and provides support and looks great regardless what your chest size is. And the bottoms have two different fits. There's a comfort fit, and because the entire premise of the lingerie is that you don't need to tuck, and so there's a comfort fit, and then there is a smoothing fit that provides a little bit of kind of a smoothing silhouette. And then in the near future, we're going to launch an enhancing fit for people who just want to flaunt what they got, because some people be like that.
Hey, I got the gawk. It's okay.
Yeah, exactly. And honestly, like the reviews we've gotten so far have been overwhelmingly positive. And it's everyone who has tried it on says it's super comfortable, and I think it's really great. And we're going to be coming out with new designs in the near future, along with that new enhancing fit. And we're also going to be doing new colors, because right now there's only black, but we just launched it like a month ago. So
okay,
give us some time.
I've seen your advertisements for it on... I have just hit the flee command on my white mage. I'm an idiot. But I've seen your advertisements for it on Blue Sky.
Yeah.
But I figured if we're here, this is just a perfectly good time to go ahead and just spout off about it.
Just ImogeneOlivia.com if anyone wants to check it out. Imogene Olivia is also over on Blue Sky. You can check it out. And like, I don't know, check it out. Let us know what you think. We're going to be doing a couple of different colors. I'm really excited for the verdigris we're going to do. Those of you who played some Elden Ring DLC, you guys know what verdigris is now.
Lenari says black is classic. Black is classic, but there are some people who really like sporting red. I personally can be victimized by green lingerie. If Saki is wearing something like that, I'm incapable of functioning for a little while, so I get it. PJ Blade says, I think it's Imogene Olivia, not sure I'm spelling it right. And, oh, your pronouns were asked as well in the chat.
Oh, she, her. Thank you, everybody. And I'll DM you the link to the website if you want to share it in your chat.
Yeah, let me go ahead and do that.
Blue Sky.
Yeah, DM it to me on Blue Sky, because if I do it on
yes.
Discord, it's just gonna... There we go. Doot, and then back to Matt Walsh over there. There we go. Got the link posted for everybody.
Yeah, check it out. My partner literally got the idea because we tried buying lingerie together, and it made me cry because the fit on paper should have fit, but in practice did not. And so she launched a company to make sure that she could make me underwear.
Honestly, that's kind of the... Okay, that's probably the most boss-ass bitch thing that somebody can actually do, where they're just like, my partner was hurt by this, so I started a company to stop that. Like, all right, sure. We were talking about DC Comics earlier, but that is a Wayne Industries move.
Well, and my partner went to literally one of the best lingerie design schools in the world, so, like, she has... like the skill set to make this to like a really like a really great degree. I'm messing up my words because I'm like choking up a little bit, but like she's really, really good at this shit, and it's really cool that like we have somebody who's making stuff specifically for trans people, and like also understands how like sizing works appropriately, because often what garment companies will do is they'll be like, oh yeah, we have one fit model, and then we just scale that up for bigger people. But that's not how like human bodies work.
No, because we do all this weird shit like distribute fat differently. Like,
and like some cis women have larger chests, and like, you know, like it's or smaller chests, and you know, for like some of our research into like sizing, we went to like New York City's like garment district and like went to like the places that have bras, right? And like lingerie. And like I tried on a bunch of stuff, and literally the woman who was working there was mortified because they didn't have something that fits my chest. And my chest is not like an abnormal size. just you know, it's not like a crazy ask for me to get like something that fits. But for traditional the way things are traditionally sized, it wasn't in the cards. So my partner was just like, all right, we really do got to do this from the ground up. So
it is time to begin an entire company.
Yep.
In order to make sure that the boobies can fit.
And there are like a handful of other companies that do like trans affirming lingerie, but like a lot of them either require tucking, which is painful, and like, I don't know, I think it kind of sucks. And the other thing is that you can also find like underwear and like that fits, but it's not cute or particularly feminine. Like, it's just kind of like functional. It's
just underwear that happens to be there, and therefore it works, which is not...
Yeah, exactly.
It's like, so like the point of lingerie is for you to feel sexy in it. That is why you got lingerie specifically.
You get it. You get it.
Yeah. Like, you're not getting it because you want just underwear that you can wear. You're getting it because you want to feel attractive while wearing it. It's the same reason that people want non-cakey makeup. They want makeup that makes them look and feel more confident, and they want it to last for a long amount of time so that there's not this timer on how long that confidence gets to work.
Absolutely. and so like I think we really nailed it with this first design, and we're gonna keep on coming out with more, and I'm real excited for the colors. I think we're doing the verdigris and like a lavender for like our first two colors in addition to the black, but we're gonna expand colors and expand our selection of different sets as we continue forward. So, yeah.
Well, it sounds like a really good initiative, and I'm sorry that it started from a bad place and a bad thing happening, but I'm glad that the end result has been good.
Yeah, and I mean, like, the other thing is, like, you can go to, like, websites where, like, lingerie is designed for cis men for, like, cross-dressing, but I can tell you, that sucks. Like, for a trans woman, that sucks.
That's not gonna work, because if... okay. HRT changes the way that fat is distributed around your body. So clothes that are made for cis men will not work for trans women, because after 6 months to a year on progesterone, estradiol, whatever the fuck you happen to be on, it's gonna change shit. It's gonna change shit about how your body operates.
It's not quite like I think a lot of people who don't know much about trans people get the impression from, especially from like conservative media, that like especially like the hubbub about like trans athletes or whatever, like, oh, trans people are just cis men who are saying that they're women now, and it's like, no, you actually, like, a lot of us go on like hormones, we go on medication, we get surgeries, and like genuinely that differentiates you biologically from before you started that process.
Yeah, you end up being a much more different person. Like, about the only thing that does not change when it comes to hormones, for trans women at least, is your voice. That's a thing that's a thing that has to be trained. Everything else, though, that shit gets different. That shit gets changed, and not all the time in positive ways. So it is better. I think, honestly, it's the kind of stuff that you just need other trans people at the helm of, who have undergone that process, who understand what it is. Because, like, for me, I know what I do about trans women from either research or, you know, living with one for multiple years now, which has now made... The last time I mentioned that made my audience somewhat uncomfortable when they realized that me and Saki have been together for years now, and they were watching during the me and Saki getting together moments. So they're just like, fuck, it's been a long time. But like, most of the stuff that I know is either from research, which has been spotty because you never know what you don't know when you need to research until somebody corrects you on something. The other stuff that I know is from living with Saki. where there's information that I'll just glean because of things she'll say about how she's operating at the time. I'll just be like, oh, suddenly that thing makes sense, whatever that thing happens to be at the time. Shuwade says I could find some stuff in my size that is like a nice shade of green. I feel so good in green. See, green is good. Mm-hmm. Green is good. It is a good color. It is a very good color. I really want to make a Terra deck for Magic the Gathering just because she has very, very pretty green hair. I don't know what that says about me, but it's... Hey, thanks for making it to the end of the video. I really could not do any of this without all of you. Those of you watching, and especially those of you who support me on Patreon. I wanted to go ahead and take a minute to thank all of you who do that, because with YouTube being what it is these days, I really cannot do this full time without the support from each and every one of you. Those people would be Red Joker, Purple Poundini, Jemshin, Britzkrieg, Jupe the Malignant, Michael, Ravalern, Mabbity Babbity, Astral Frontier, Tales of Atonement, Nixie Chan, Kiri Artemis, Limor Pinku, Love Bunny Games, Victorian Alchemist, I'm not saying the last part of that, and you know that, Aurora, Leela Ururaka, Arcton Arclacier, Kiratorian, Dren Hadamata, Jordan M, John L, Lord Bleck, Smiling Game Master, and Fireshard. Thank you so very much. But since you're here, why not go ahead and try watching another one? There should be one that's on the screen right now. And if you are a patron of mine, I wanted to go ahead and thank you again for all of your support. There is still a video you could press though, if you'd like. I would appreciate it just a little bit.